My name is Glenn Thomas, and I am the pastor at St. Matthew Lutheran Church. And after a long bout of dealing with arthritis, a few years ago I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. As I've been through this journey and dealing with all of the medical and physical questions, I've also discovered that there are, in this process, a lot of spiritual questions. And I've learned some things about myself and my faith and about the grace of God and how it is active in my life. Recently I had a chance to read a book by Stuart Govig called Strong at the Broken Places. And it was a book written to the larger community about how to be in partnership with and how to minister to and for persons who are living with disabilities. But as I read that book, it occurred to me that there was another word underneath that. For people who do live with disabilities and how our unique situations and our particular viewpoints and understandings of life might be a benefit, might be a witness even to the work of God's grace in the world. So I invite you to share with me these reflections as we think about who we are as persons, as whole persons, but as people who live with disabilities, and what particular special gifts we might have to offer the world. This is Persistent Grace. Thank you for joining me again today as we begin this fifth in this series of reflections based on this book, Strong at the Broken Places. The first four dealt with how the world sees people with disabilities and how, as people who live with disabilities, can affect that view, how we can make a witness to who we are, how we can allow what is unique about us in our lives to bear witness to the grace of God in the world and be not just a problem for the world to deal with, but actually be important in the world and be an important part of that witness. Now, in these last four reflections, we want to turn back in on ourselves and ask these questions: How do I make the most of my life? How do I challenge myself to grow spiritually? And what are the tools and opportunities I have to be the most person I can be? And to make the most of my spiritual life as a person who lives with a disability. So today we're going to talk about fellowship. And I'm going to read from the first letter to the Corinthians, the 12th chapter. Paul writes, "The members of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable, and those parts of the bodies we think less honorable we clothe with greater honor, and our less respectable members are treated with greater respect. Whereas our more respectable members do not need this. But God has so arranged the body, giving the greater honor to the inferior member, that there may be no dissension within the body, but that the members may have the same care for one another. If one member suffers, all suffer together with it. If one member is honored, all rejoice together with it." Fellowship is an important spiritual practice. This human connection we make with other people gives us life and is an instrument through which grace flows. No one can be by themselves. No one can live by themselves. No one can experience joy and hope without the help of another. And so the other people in our lives are terribly important. And for us to maintain ourselves spiritually as people who live with disabilities, we need to attend to making sure that fellowship is a regular practice in our life. It's harder because of access and mobility issues. It's very easy for us to isolate ourselves. We have to go to extra lengths to make sure that we are connected to other human beings. Luckily, we live in an age where there's technology that can help us do that, like this now. But still, that human contact, that personal contact, that face-to-face time is something that is also terribly valuable and something we should never let go of. I'm mindful that in the Gospels, Jesus often went out of his way to spend time with people that tended to get avoided, tended to get left out, that he often sat at table with those who the society deemed less desirable, that he often crossed boundaries and borders to make connections to human beings. And I think about the banquet parables, right? And the king who is holding a banquet and sends his servants out into the roads and the byways to gather anybody who will come to make sure that his table is full. This needs to be part of our practice as people who live with disabilities. We need to be sure that we have taken our place at the table as well. What's beautiful about living in this time, of course, is that the world has gone to some length so far to make space. The Americans with Disabilities Act helps create more accessibility for people who have disabilities. We need to continue to be a part of that. And we need to almost demand our place at the table. We need to not leave ourselves out, but to go that extra length to make sure that we have taken on both the full responsibilities of being a part of the community and that we enjoy its full rights as well. It is helpful for us to remember that sometimes community happens outside of the normal structures. Part of the challenge of coming into a disability later in life is to have to relearn ways to exercise and experience communities, to rebuild relationships in new ways. There are things that we can't do now that we used to be able to do before. But there are still groups and there are still other people out there who are just as hungry for human relationship as we are. And we need to find ways, be creative about making places and opportunities for us to gather as well. Home is such an important part of all of our life. But I'm mindful, of course, that family is not just this artificial creation, right? But family are all of those people with whom we have close and intimate relationships. And we need to be attentive to those. It's very easy when you live with a disability to have all of your relationships defined by your need of other people, by the things that you need other people to do for you. We need to create relationships where we are also the one who does for another, that we make best use of our gifts and our talents to help other people out, and not just become a burden, but also become a part of helping someone. That's how families function. It is that interdependence that makes families wonderful. We have gifts to give. We have ways to serve other people. We must never lose sight of that, because that's what makes community work. That's what makes relationships valuable. And we can't ever let go of that. It is important that we become people who are really good at making peace with others and at creating change. And perhaps some of that change is within us as well. Given that perhaps it's more difficult for us to find ourselves, to put ourselves into social situations where we can gain this gift of fellowship, perhaps it's a good time for us to make an evaluation of who we are. I have found that one of the real challenges of living with a disability is what it does to my mood, what it does to my attitude, that days are difficult sometimes and longer. And I often have to ask myself whether I'm being the person that others want to be around. And that I have to constantly be attentive to my attitude and to the way I treat others as well, lest I lose this very important gift of fellowship. You see, it's a sort of a circular kind of problem. As we become more and more isolated, we become less and less good at relationship. We become worse at both making and keeping our friendships. We lose our social skills. And that just simply serves to make us even more and more isolated. It is so important as a person who lives with a disability that we are constantly battling against isolating ourselves. There are enough forces in the world or in the community around us that will separate us, that will make it harder for us to keep our place in the world. We have to be sure that we are not our own impediment in this chase after this very important spiritual spiritual gift. Because as Paul reminds us, the world needs us. As people who live with disabilities, the world needs this chance to be a part of our lives, even as much as we need them to be a part of theirs. So let us pledge to make fellowship an important spiritual gift in our life, an important spiritual practice. Let us never let go of our need to be in relationship with others. God bless. You have a wonderful day.